Okay, we are back to the mid section. So Vikram can do this. Okay, John, please.
Yes. So this is my opinion.
Okay.
Okay, so I think that demand of USD will increase when we go to the right?
Mm-hmm.
So the exchange rates will increase also, and the central bank will sell USD and receive VND receive VND, and at the same time, FOMOS will buy government bond, and money supply will decrease.
Okay.
Yes.
So please go back and we go step by step. Okay. So first, there's an increase in the demand.
Yes.
For the USD. Okay, and it shift the demand curve to the right, and it raised the exchange rate, right? Okay,
Yes.
this point. And then what should the central bank do?
Central bank will sell USD.
Okay, they sell the USD.
Yes.
They sell the USD, and we have the demand, the new supply curve, right?
Yes.
New supply curve, and they sell the USD, and in return, they withdraw or what they receive VND. Okay, and what happened to the economy?
They will receive more random to the economy.
What happened to the economy?
The monetary base will decrease.
Okay, MV
Thank you.
decrease. Then
and the monetary supply will decrease also.
Okay. Then shortage of money. So what is the next consequence? So we have MB decrease, okay, it's correct. Then MS decrease, okay, it's correct. But then what happened? So what is the keywords? Okay, we can name or we can label for the situation when MS decrease. What is the consequence of this? If the MS increase, so there's an inflation. Okay, so we all know that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in the opposite way, when the MS decrease, so what is the terms, or what is the technical jargon we use to describe this situation? To describe the consequence. The opposite was inflation.
It's deflation.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. What is the Vietnamese word of deflation?
It is giảm phát.
Okay, thank you. It's correct. Mm-hmm. Deflation. Okay. You should know that inflation is worse for the economy. It's worse for the economy. That's the general knowledge. But a lot of studies show that like a small inflation is good for the economy. If the inflation in the 2 digits, it's not good. But if the inflation is rank from 2 to 4, so that's good for the economy. Okay, a small inflation is good for the economy. That's why a lot of central bank, they follow or they implement the taxes inflating or inflation targeting, lạm phát mục tiêu. Did you heard about that? Have you ever heard about that? The inflation targeting, lạm phát mục tiêu.
No.
Okay. When we study the central bank may have a unique objective, or they have a multiple objective. Okay. For the case of Vietnam, the objective is to stabilize the economy in terms of the inflation and in terms of the exchange rate. Okay. And the central bank also have to support the government to achieve the economic growth, or to support, or to improve the economic growth, and to keep a low level of unemployment. So for the case of the State Bank of Vietnam, we have a multiple objective. Okay. And if the central bank have the multiple objective, so it lead to the situation that create a dilemma. At the same time, they cannot achieve several objectives because inside the objective they have they contrast each other, or they have the opposites. Okay. At the same time, the central bank may sacrifice one objective in order to achieve another. Okay. And the general, or the modern theory of the central bank, they propose the central bank should just follow or just commit to one objective. And there are several objectives the central bank can choose. Okay, they just pick one of those. For example, the central bank can fix the exchange rate. Okay, keep the exchange rate stable. That is the one objective, and they just commit to do that. They ignore another. Okay, another is the central bank, they commit some level of the money growth rate. Okay, that is one objective, and another objective is the inflation. The central bank, they announce. Okay, so by the end of this year, they announce, or they plan that, okay, in the next year, I will commit to keep the inflation at 2% or at 4%. Okay, and in the next year, the central bank, they apply like any monetary instrument that they want to keep to achieve that's the inflation targeting at 2% and at 4%. Okay, so in that's the regime we call the inflation targeting. 10 years ago, Vietnam, the central bank of Vietnam raised the question whether we should follow or whether we adopt from the money growth rate to the inflation targeting. And the answer is we cannot, because our inflation is quite high and we cannot do that. Okay, we come back to our situation here. So in this case, we assume that there's an increase in the demand of the USD, and that shift the demand curve to the right. Okay, and in the fixed exchange rate, the central bank have to keep the some level of the exchange rate. Okay, so the central bank will sell the USD in exchange for the VND. Okay, in other words, the central bank will withdraw the VND. So MB, the monetary base decrease, then MS decrease, and it leads to a deflation. And similar to the inflation, when we have the deflation, okay, if we have the big deflation, it's not good for the economy because it decreased from the production. Okay, if we have a high inflation rate, it's not good for the economy because the money lost value But when we have the deflation, if we have a big decrease of, we have a big number of the deflation, it also not good for the economy because it decreases the production. Okay, the firm don't want to produce. Okay, when we have inflation, the consumer don't want to buy, don't want to consume. But when we have the deflation, a big deflation, the firm don't want to produce. In both cases, if the rate is high, so both cases are not good for the economy. And we can just stop at that's the consequence. Okay, so now to correct the monetary effect, what should the central bank do? Now, what should the central bank do on the OMO?
Yes, so they will buy government bond and money supply will decrease, I think.
Okay, the central bank will buy the government bond, okay,
Yes.
and they pay VND, okay, or they inject the money into the economy, okay. So that's the way the central bank do, okay. They can do like in the following step, or they can do at the same time to cancel out the negative effect on the intervention, okay. Okay, that's the general concept, the main concept we have for the intervention. For practice, I already I just upload the multiple choice question on the Google Classroom. Unfortunately, I only have the Vietnamese question, okay? And please practice with that. Have you received? Please check the Google Classroom, and you can see the new exercise. The question for practice, I just upload. Okay, so we have the question for the exchange rate and exchange rate resume, and we have the question for the determinant of the exchange rate. Okay. Do you want to practice now? Or do you want we move to the chapter 4? Please open the question and take a look. Do you see the screen I share? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Please answer question on. Dark, please.
I think the answer is B. No, the answer is A. Is
Ngũ tiền đạt, right? Ngũ tiền đạt. Okay. In the fixed exchange rate, the central bank have to sell the domestic currency and buy the foreign currency. So your answer is
A.
A.
Yeah. Khi nội tệ được định giá cao và tỷ giá thấp hơn tỷ giá cân bằng.
Okay. Let me use the bot. Please take a picture because I use the bot, so you maybe you don't know the question. Okay, finish. Let's see whether that answer is correct. Okay, our question is the central bank sell the domestic currency and buy the foreign currency, and his answer is A. When the domestic currency is overvalued or the exchange rate or the exchange rate is lower than the equilibrium rate. Okay, this is the equilibrium, right? Okay, in the answer A, the exchange rate, that means the central rate is lower than, okay, is lower than this. So we have here the intersection between demand and supply is the equilibrium rate. That is the equilibrium. And in this case, we have the exchange rate, the central rate is lower than the equilibrium rate, okay? And in that case, the domestic rate, the domestic currency is overvalued. Okay. So in this scenario, what should the central bank do? So we have here, we have the demand, right? The supply. Okay. And when we see at the central rate, so we have a excess in the demand or we have the excess in the supply?
The excess in supply.
Supply or demand?
Supply.
Supply in here. You see my point?
Demand, I'm sorry.
Here, right? The supply, right? The demand, right? So we have an excess in the demand. Okay. When we have the excess in the demand, so in the fixed exchange rate, the central bank have to absorb, okay? Hấp thụ. Absorb that excess in the demand. how should the central bank do?
Well, they will buy.
That is
I'm
in-
sorry. They will sell.
the demand. Okay, the
They
central
will
bank
sell.
have to sell this. Okay, the central bank have to sell. Have to sell the foreign currency. So it not fits with the question 1, right? So we should have the opposite case. We should have okay, the opposite case in here. In here, so we have there is an excess in the supply, right? If the central rate is higher than the equilibrium rate, so the central bank will, in that case, there is an excess in the supply. So the central bank will buy the foreign currency, okay? So, and which question is correct? Which answer is correct? Question, the answer D, right? The domestic currency is undervalued, and the central rate is higher than the equilibrium rate. Okay, so that's the way we use to answer. Okay, you got the point. You got the idea to answer this type of question. Okay, I think it's useful to practice some more, right? Let me come back.
I'm sorry, can you restate the answer?
Mm-hmm.
You said the answer was B or D?
D. Domestic currency is undervalued, and the central rate is higher than the equilibrium rate. The answer is D. Okay. Let's do the question 3 and 5. Question 3 and 5. I want to organize a group. I want to have a group, and that help me to translate those questions from Vietnamese into English. Monitor, can you arrange a small group and do that for me?
Do we have bonus points for doing it?
Sorry?
Will the translate group will have bonus points for doing it?
The signal is not clear, so I cannot catch what you're saying.
I mean that if the translated group, so will they have bonus points and they have
sure. Of course, yes. So I need a group, like I think just a small group, like a group of 5 or around the 5, okay, and help me to translate the question I just upload. The question in chapter 8 and chapter 11, okay. And monitor.
Yes.
Okay. So who want to take that task? Please register to the monitor, and monitor first come first serve, and around I think group of 5 is okay. But if more than that, so from 5 to 7, I think the 7 is the maximum. Okay, who want to join and take this task, please register to the monitor, and monitor please organize, okay, your team, and then help me to translate the question in the chapter 8 and chapter 11, okay? And
when do they have to finish it?
The deadline is 1 week. It's okay.
Okay.
So, okay, because we have last week. This week is the week 7. So by the end of the weekend, because today is the month day, right? And if we have the group from 5-7, so it's not too much question per person, okay? So by the end of this weekend, okay, by the end of this Sunday, okay? So after we have the translation, so we can send to own class member, okay? And please read and recheck, okay? You can use that for practice. And if you see something that is not correct or make you confused, and please inform me. We then correct that, and so we have the system of the exercise, and that's useful for the next student, okay, for the next class. Khánh Linh, you do the question 5.
I have a question. It is opposite to the micromic. Because I study micromic is opposite this. Em học vĩ mô ấy ạ, thì nó cũng lại về thế này.
Yes.
Ở vĩ mô thì nội tệ được giá thì mình mới bán ấy ạ. Nhưng mà ở câu 1 thì nó lại ngược lại. Và không hiểu lắm.
Nội tệ được giá bán. What does it mean by that?
Tức là ở cái câu 1 em tưởng đáp án là
In here we okay, so so you stand in the points of the investor, or you stand in the shoes of the central bank. They are different. Okay.
Oh, so it's depend on the point.
Yes. Yeah. Here we stand in the the central bank, and the idea. Let me check. The idea here is that. Okay. Let me recheck. When we have the excess in the supply. Mm-hmm. The central bank the central bank have to absorb that's excess in the supply of the foreign currency, and they buy that excess, the amount of the excess, okay, and when they buy, so it shift the demand curve to the right, okay. In here we stand on the central bank shoe, okay.
I thought when they buy the USD, for example, they make the supply decrease.
And
The supply is
no. When okay, I remember that I emphasized that one time in the last meeting. When the central bank make a transaction on the forex market, they only increase supply or increase the demand, not opposite. And please remember that. They only, when they buy the foreign currency, okay, it's increase the demand. Okay, when they sell the foreign currency, it's increase the supply. We don't have the opposite way, okay? The central bank cannot reduce or cannot shift the supply curve to the left or shift the demand curve to the left. They cannot do that. And please always remember that, okay? When the central bank, they make a transaction, okay? They only increase the supply or the demand curve. When the central bank sell the foreign currency, it raises the supply curve. It shifts the supply curve to the right. When the central bank buy the foreign currency, it shifts the demand curve to the right, okay? Please always remember that.
I have a question. The purpose of buying USD is to make the exchange rate increase. So when the central bank needs to make it increase, mean that before the first exchange rate is lower than the market rate, right? I think so.
Can you repeat?
The purpose of the central bank buying USD is to make the exchange rate increase. So that means the exchange rate of the market before it is lower than the exchange rate of the central bank, right?
Let me come back the question. So you still stick at the question 1, right? Am I right?
Yes.
So when we explain the the way the central bank intervene in the market, if the central bank decide to intervene by selling the domestic currency and buying the foreign currency. So which in this third question, we analyze when the central bank have to do that. Okay. The information on the question 1 is the the decision of the central bank, but why they choose to do that? So we use this for simply we use this graph to see. The central bank, they buy the foreign currency when there is an excess in the supply. Okay, so they need to withdraw. They need to withdraw. And at this level, we can see that and this level is higher than the equilibrium. We have the equilibrium is this. The equilibrium in the market, okay, and the central rate set by the central bank. And at this central rate, okay, there is an excess in the supply, so the central bank have to buy the excess amount, okay, and after they buy or after this intervention, is the new equilibrium, and at this equilibrium, the central rate overlap with the equilibrium rate. Okay? And at the initial point, we have the central rate is higher than equilibrium rate. Do I answer the question?
Oh, yeah, I got it. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, please think about the question 3. Question 3. Khánh Huyền, please.
The answer is B. Nội tệ được định giá cao, tức tỷ giá cao hơn tỷ giá cân bằng.
Okay. Your answer is D, right?
B. Bỏ
C.
B.
D. Oh, okay. D. So the domestic currency is undervalued. So the question is the same, like question. The answer is same. Do you want to change your answer? So I guess the answers must be different from that's the question 1.
My answer is B because the question is different.
Okay, B, right? So it should be different from question 1. Okay.
Yes.
So it should be A or B, A or B, and
B.
your answer is B. Okay. Okay. Let's use the graph to see this. So in the fixed exchange rate, the question is in the fixed exchange rate, the central bank intervene by buying the domestic currency and selling the foreign currency. So we should have the opposite way, opposite case, right? So we have the in this, okay? So if the central rate is less than the equilibrium rate, okay? So we have an in excess in the demand, right? The demand is this. Demand is this point. Supply is this point. So we have, okay, the excess. The demand is greater than supply, and excess in the demand. So what should the central bank do? The central bank have to sell, right? The foreign currency. Okay, shift this. Okay, the central bank have to sell the foreign currency in exchange for the domestic currency. Okay, and so we have here. So when you read the information, you should be able to translate the information into the at least the graph. It's easy to capture the idea when you use the graph. If you understand the way to apply the graph, I think you make no mistake about that. And you translate the information, the central bank buy the domestic currency and sell the foreign currency. Okay, you just focus on the direction of commodity currency or the foreign currency transaction. In here, the central bank have to sell the commodity currency or sell the foreign currency. Okay, when the central bank have to sell in the fixed exchange rate. So in this case, there is an in excess in the demand. Okay, the demand is higher than the supply, so the central bank have to sell the foreign currency. And when you draw this line, you can see that the central rate, okay, is smaller than the equilibrium rate. And when we have this, so the domestic currency is overvalued, right? Overvalued. In other words, the commodity currency or the foreign currency is undervalued. Okay. So when you have this graph, so you have whether, so you should be familiar with whether the central rate is higher or lower than the equilibrium rate. And when it's lower, okay, when it's lower, so the domestic currency is overvalued, right? Overvalued. So when we have the higher line, so we have the undervalue, okay, and the interpretation of the domestic currency and the foreign currency are opposites, okay. You just focus on the one currency, like the case of the foreign currency, okay, and for the domestic currency, you just explain in the opposite way, okay, it's fine. So you should be familiar with this type of question, and when you read the information, you should quickly draw a graph and to justify. So it corresponds to what the situation. So it should be the central rate should lie above or below the equilibrium rate. Okay, and then when we have the exact supply or whether we have the exact demand, and then what should the central bank do? The central bank will buy or you sell. Okay, so you have to practice all that, and you be able to translate the information into the correct graph, and then you have to justify the decision of the central bank correctly. And because we may have the final examination with the multiple choice question, so if you practice more and you have like a high skill on task, with this type of question, you can like quickly answer without any mistake. Okay, I think it's good for you. Okay, we come back. We still have the question 5, right? Question 5. Okay, time please.
I think the answer is B.
The answer is B.
B.
Okay. B. Reduce the money supply and increase the interest rate. Is what the answer?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Why? Why you do this? Please explain for us.
It depends on the knowledge I have just learned from the macroeconomics.
Yes. Please use us.
Vậy để em dịch cái từ tiếng Việt sang tiếng Anh là để em nhớ lại.
Okay. You can use the Vietnamese.
Thực ra thì là khi mà mua nội tệ và với cả bán ngoại tệ ra thì cái money base nó giảm xuống ạ. Cái money base giảm xuống thì cái MS theo công thức thì cái MB tỷ lệ thuận với cả MS thì MS cũng giảm xuống, xong MS giảm xuống thì dẫn đến là Y tăng lên ạ, dẫn đến lãi suất tăng lên ạ. Cái đấy với sơ đồ A thì dễ hiểu hơn.
Okay. So for the case, so this corresponds to the, you can see the scenario of question 3 and 5 is similar, right? Right? The central bank sell the foreign currency, right? When they sell the foreign currency, the situation is same. Sell the foreign currency. So we have the central rate is, or the official rate is lower or higher than the equilibrium rate.
Lower.
Lower, right? Okay. The situation is same, but let's see. The question 5 is refer to the consequent intervention when the central bank they buy the domestic currency and sell the foreign currency. Okay. Time's answer is B, decrease the money supply and increase the interest rate. Okay, let's see. For decrease the money supply, so because the central bank withdraw or they buy the domestic currency, right? We have a decrease in MB and then a decrease in MS. Okay, so the first part is correct. There's a decrease in the money supply. Okay, how about the interest rate?
Tôi em nói tiếng Việt tiếp đúng không ạ, để giải thích về cái interest rate.
Yes.
Tại vì là nó là có một cái mô hình là mô hình của đường ISLM ấy ạ. Thì cái đường khi cái MS giảm thì cái đường LM nó dịch sang bên trái ạ. Thì cái đường LM nó dịch bên trái dẫn đến là cái khi mà đường IS giữ nguyên thì dẫn đến là cái trên sơ đồ thì nó là cái Y mới thì nó sẽ cao hơn cái Y cũ ạ, tức là cái interest nó sẽ tăng lên.
Okay, so when we have a decrease in the money supply, the MS decrease, right?
Vâng ạ.
So it leads to an increase in the
interest
rate. and it corresponds to the situation in the real economy when the central bank they reduce the money supply, there is a shortage of the money of the payment instrument. It leads to an increase in the interest rate. Okay, and you apply the ISLM, it's okay. It's okay. It's correct. So this subject, if you read the syllabus, you can see that the objective or not the objective, the prerequisites. The prerequisites of the international payment is the macroeconomics. Okay, the two knowledge are the knowledge of two subjects are linked in each other. Okay, you should have to have the background in the macroeconomics in order to study better in the international finance. Okay. Okay, that's the way to answer this type of question. And for other, let me choose a different one. Okay, let's link to the different type question. Question 8. Question 8, please. Please think about that. Khánh Nguyên, please.
My answer is D. Nội tệ khỏi lên giá thì dự trữ ngoại hối phải giảm.
Okay, your answer is B. Okay, please give the explanation.
Em thấy em nói tiếng Việt đúng không ạ?
Okay. Okay.
Khi mà tỷ giá thấp hơn mức cân bằng thì lúc đó là demand sẽ lớn hơn supply, nên là ngân hàng sẽ bán ra ngoại tệ, mà khi ngân hàng trung ương bán ra ngoại tệ thì dự trữ ngoại hối phải giảm ạ. Và khi đó thì supply dịch sang phải, nên là cái giá được giữ nguyên ạ. Nên là em chọn đáp án D. Nội tệ khỏi lên giá thì dự trữ ngoại hối phải giảm.
B or D?
D.
Okay, so you change your answer from B to D, or I, right? No, okay, let me confirm. Your answer is D. Right? The last one, right?
Yes.
The last one. Okay, let's see. In the fixed exchange rate regime, when the exchange rate is lower than the official, it's lower than the equilibrium rate. Okay. So we have an excess in the demand, right? Am I right?
Yes.
question in the answer D. Answer D. So in order to keep the domestic currency from appreciation or revaluation, the foreign reserve need to be decreased. It's difficult to interpret.
I want to change my answer.
So what is your answer now?
It will be the second one.
Why you change?
Because I got a misunderstand about nội tệ mất giá. And
Yes.
yes, so my answer will be I don't
Okay.
know how. Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Let's see. So when we did information in the fixed exchange rate regime, when the central rate is less than the equilibrium rate, okay. So we have the situation on the board, right?
Yes.
On the board, right?
Yes.
So we have this level. So we have this level, okay. If the central bank, suppose that the central bank does nothing, suppose that does nothing, okay, because at this level we have an excess in the demand. You see, excess demand. If the central bank does nothing, so what happens? The excess of the demand, okay, that lead to an increase in the exchange rate. Why? Because we have here. Because we have the more demand than supply, right? So if the central bank does nothing, the exchange rate will increase back to the equilibrium level, okay? When we have this, so we have there's an increase in the exchange rate because the more demand than supply, and the market force take into place, and it shift there is an internal shift, and it raise the exchange rate, okay? They move along this line. You may see that there's a slow movement. They move on this, okay? So the exchange rate will increase small, and finally it reaches the equilibrium. And when we have that movement, okay, there's an increase in the exchange rate. It corresponds to the situation, the domestic currency lost value, right? When exchange rate increase, the value of the domestic currency decrease. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay. And in the answer B, in order to escape from losing the value, the foreign reserve decrease. And okay, so the purpose is to keep the exchange rate at this level. Okay? Because if the central bank does nothing, so there is an increase in the exchange rate, and it corresponds to the domestic currency loss value, right? So in order to escape from losing value, the central bank have to do something to keep the exchange rate at this level. And how they can do that? Okay, they sell the foreign currency in the forex market, right? Right? And the supply curve to the right, from this level, okay, to this level. And when the central bank sell the foreign currency, it have to use the foreign reserve asset, right? Or in other words, there's a decrease in the foreign reserve or the reserve asset. And the answer is B. The answer is B. Okay, so in this question is a bit difficult. Okay, you may make a mistake from translate the information in the question, and you may make a mistake when you translate the answer to keep the domestic currency from losing value. You may make a mistake when you translate that. Okay, it's a bit difficult. Okay, when you read and when you make a practice for the owner of the question in the chapter 8, you can see that in the first few is simple, okay, but step by step it raises. There's an increase in the level of difficulty, okay, and you apply the knowledge in the macroeconomics to answer this, okay. We apply both the macroeconomics and the international finance, okay, to answer this type of question. It's okay for chapter 8, right? I think we should take a look at chapter 11, the determinant of exchange rate.
Okay.
Can you see the question here? Let me. Okay, please quick answer question 9. Khánh, please.
I think the answer is A.
The answer is A. Definite purpose, the central bank intervene the forex lead to an increase in the monetary base and decrease in the foreign reserve. Increase monetary base, decrease the
Gì? Đâu, chẳng hay gì.
Minh Phạm, you have the Different answer.
I have a different answer. My answer is C.
C.
Yeah.
Okay. To increase the monetary base, have to sell the domestic currency, and to decrease the foreign reserve, to the reserve asset, have to sell. Okay. C, right? To C. Okay. So in this question, the central bank have to make a have the intervention on both the forex and the OMO. Mm-hmm. We have new knowledge for question 28. 28. Okay. For the determinant of the exchange rate, so we have a long-term determinant and short-term determinant. The long-term determinant, so we classify into the two groups. We have a long-term in the short run, and in the short run and long run, short-term and long-term. So what are the determinants in the long term or in the long run? We have the income. In theory, we have a lot of the determinants on the exchange rate. Okay. If you study or if you search for the determinant of the exchange rate, you can see, you can find a lot of them. But in this subject, we just focus on the first just a few of them, and it's like a provide in the how to say, conventional theory. Okay. The first one is the income. The second one is the preference. It's the income of the country, because we have the export and the import, right? Exporting country and the importing country, right? So we have the income of the importing. Importing and exporting country. Okay, they have different Okay, the second one is preference. Preference. What is preference? Preference for the goods. Preference, you can translate the taste for the goods. Or in Vietnamese, preference means thị hiếu. Okay, thị hiếu. If there's an increase in the preference for the foreign products, in Vietnamese we call tâm lý xính ngoại. Okay, if there's for example, increase in the preference for the foreign products in Vietnamese we have tâm lý xính ngoại, phỉnh đô ngoại, like that. Okay, and that's affect the exchange rate. And what else? We have the tax that may affect the exchange rate. And the last one, productivity. Năng suất, the labor productivity of năng suất lao động. So we focus on these four determinants. And the idea here is that when you make analysis, so we go to the way that's when there's an increase in the income, so how whether they affect the supply or the demand of the foreign currency. That's the way we use when we analyze. Okay, so we have these four determinants, and we suppose that this determinant increase or decrease. Okay, the income increase or income decrease, and then we analyze or we justify whether such movement affect the supply and the demand of the foreign currency. Okay, and you use the graph. Okay, you use the graph and you make an analysis. So if an increase in the income of the importing country, okay, so it means that they demand more for our export good, right? They demand more, so in that case we export more. If we export more, so it shifts the supply curve to the right, okay, and it leads to a decrease in the exchange rate. Okay, so we apply this logic when we make an analysis for the whole four determinant, and it is your homework for this. Okay, let me clarify what you should do when you are at home. So we have the four determinant of the long-term determinant. Okay, so in X scenario, we have the income, the preference for goods, and the tax and productivity. So you make an assumption there's an increase in the income of the importing country or the exporting country. So we for X determinant, so we have if we suppose that an increase in the income. Okay, so we have the two cases. Okay, And if we suppose that a decrease in the income, so we have two markets. So in X determinant, we have 2 times 2, right? We have the focus equal to focus, okay? And in X determinant, we have the 4 scenario, okay? And please use a graph to see. So whether the change in the income lead to a decrease or increase in the exchange rate, okay? And you do the same for the rest 3, okay? It's clear for the homework? For the short term, we have the 2 determinants. In the short term, we have the interest rate. That's the first one, and we have the expectation. Expectation. Expectation here means expectation for the prospect of the economy, of the domestic economy or of the global economy. And okay, I think you just do for me the long term determinant. In the class, I will explain the short term one because it's a bit difficult than the long term determinant. Okay, it's clear for your homework. You understand what you need to do? Please confirm me. Do you understand? It's clear.
Can you repeat once again? This one.
Yeah. Okay. So we have. You already learned about the supply and the demand of the foreign currency, right? Am I right? The supply and the demand of the foreign currency. You already learned about that, right? And now we study the determinant of the exchange rate. And in the long term, and we have in here I provide you 4 terms: the income, the preference means here, the tax or the tax tariff, okay, tariff or non-tariff measure, both are okay, and productivity. And the idea is that when you change this determinant, how they affect the supply and the demand, you have to understand, you have to match whether the change lead to a decrease or increase in the supply of the demand, okay? And from that, after you have a movement, so on the graph you can see whether it's the decrease or increase the exchange rate. So for X determinant, so you do that for the importing country, for the exporting country, and we have the increase or decrease, okay? So in X determinant, we have the 4 cases, and we do the same for the rest 3.
Teacher, I have a question about when the preference for the goods. So we don't know foreign coming from foreign.
Okay. The preference.
Who is the importer? Who is the exporter in this case?
Okay, so you just, because we have the exporter and importer, right? Okay, so just suppose that we have the Vietnam and the US, okay? Right? So just have the 2 country model, and we have the preference. Like the Vietnam have preference. Like Vietnamese people have more preference for the US good. So what happened? And now we can see that the government, they implement the policy to encourage the Vietnamese people to use the Make in Vietnam products, right? So it may lead to an increase in the preference for the Vietnamese product. So if that's happen, so how it affect the exchange rate? It's clear with that?
Yes. Okay.
Okay, please try to do that. And I will explain in the next meeting before we move into the chapter 4. Okay? Please try to do that first. And it doesn't matter whether it's correct or not, but you have to try. At least you spend time for that. Okay? I think it's a good attitude. Okay, so we stop now.
Yes.
Okay, see you on this Wednesday.
See you
Thank you,
Wednesday.
teacher.
Okay, thank you so
Bye.
much.